if I were in Nick's place. It does have that great potential to be able to threaten as well as enable its partner Pokemon, but this is the moment we've been waiting for. We have game one of the second semi-final. Nick is bringing the Flutter Mane, accompanied by that Ogerpon Wellspring, versus Francesco's Raging Moon and the Raging Bolt, apologies, and the Entei.
Yeah, this is I would give the advantage to Nick here. You're threatening very good damage onto the opposing Raging Bolt thanks to your choice specs Flutter Mane. And Ogerpon, we have to see the trading on between the Entei and the Ogerpon. Of course, Ogerpon does naturally outspeed the opposing Entei. That could be a free hit of the Ivy Cudgel straight into that slot, but it's not the Assault Vest. It can protect itself. It can keep itself safe from the Ivy Cudgel. You can go for a Terror on either Pokemon so that you can get rid of the weakness to either the Fairy on the Raging Bolt or the Water on the Entei. And here is a Terastallization coming out on turn one.
Yeah, I think as a direct sort of response to the board state right now, Nick wants to go on the offensive, wants to be able, even at the sacrifice of now being susceptible to extreme speed, to force that situation upon Francesco, which immediately retaliates with their own Terastallization, being that Raging Bolt.
Yeah, Raging Bolt going for its very common Terra Fairy. They're dropping the Dragon typing, not going to be weak to the Fairy type attacks, but it's still going to be doing a lot of damage thanks to that Terra Fairy.
As Entei is going to go for the Protect, a bit on the defensive, and I think in combination with that Raging Bolt, wants to try to make sure that the Raging Bolt doesn't go down from this Moonblast, even though it's a lot of damage. It just barely tries to scratch the surface of a two-hit KO while dropping the special attack, and a double combination, nearly picking up the KO onto the Raging Bolt, but not quite enough, and that does allow it to get that Electro Web off right now, dropping the speed of both that Flutter Mane as well as the Ogerpon.
That was fantastically covered by Nick there. Going to be able to catch that Terra Fairy with a very neutral but very strong Ivy Cudgel. Not quite strong enough though. That Electro Web was fired off. Now assumably this Entei is going to be able to outspeed both Pokemon.
Yeah, as we do have the Rillaboom now coming in onto the field. Will have Fake Out availability in the subsequent turn whilst getting a tiny bit of recovery. Further also boosting any grass type moves that will be unleashed from Nick's side. But another switch up there, double switch with the Gouging Fire now being on the field, wanting to reposition himself in order to perhaps further enable this Rillaboom with a couple of howls.
Yeah, and that won't be able to be burned by a Sacred Fire. You would have wanted to try and burn the opposing Ogerpon, but there's the Thunderclap that failed because that, of course, that's a double switch. You can't target into that. And a fantastic switch in for that Gouging Fire. That's going to shrug off that Sacred Fire every day. Even with the Rillaboom's grassy terrain, it's almost recovered straight back to full. Fantastic switch for Nick.
What a lovely little piece of work of a turn there from Nick. Now repositioned once again. This is what we've seen Nick do. Reflip, or should I say flip the board state completely on its head. Now having a new threat that forces Francesco to react and try to adapt against.
Yeah, Ogerpon is going to be switching in for that Raging Bolt that would have easily been able to be kicked up by with the KO for that Grassy Glide on the Rillaboom. And it's a howl to be able to boost the attack of Gouging Fire and Rillaboom even further here. But that allows Entei to freely go for Sacred Fire into that opposing Rillaboom. Almost picks up the KO and does snag that burn. But it does get about half the time. And the Grassy Terrain is going to keep it safe just this turn. You do as much damage with the burn as the Grassy Terrain recovery. So Rillaboom is just about going to survive this turn.
Yes, and now it's sort of like offsets. If Gouging Fire goes for another howl, it will offset that burn mitigation of the damage output half completely. But we do have Ogerpon over on Francesco's side. It is in a good place to actually try to get some sort of redirection focus away from the Entei, which may be further enabled.
Yeah, the Burning Bulwark's just going to come out here. They're going to keep itself safe from any attacks that would be fired off into that slot. And it's a following up Protect, but Spiky Shield from the Ogerpon. That was a Grassy Glide into that Ogerpon slot, and Grassy Glide would be KOing the opposing Rillaboom. But no, it's not going to be a Grassy Glide here. There's a Stomping Tantrum into that Burning Bulwark. Of course, Entei is a fire type. It won't be picking up that burn, but it is an attack into the opposing Ogerpon. It wasn't a Grassy Glide, but that's still going to be a Wood Hammer that does make contact there and is going to KO itself thanks to that Spiky Shield chip.
Yeah, and both Nick and Francesco being completely aware of the board situation. They want to try to be able to preserve the main integral part and piece of their strategy at the moment and allow their second partner Pokemon to open up a bit with more space. But now Nick, however, does have the option of bringing in a new, fresh Pokemon from what it looks to be the Ogerpon.
Yeah, we've still got reasonably matched board states because we got the Entei and the Gouging Fire paired up with the Ogerpon. We don't know the speed interactions yet between the two Ogerpons. That could be pretty crucial. crucial, because if the Ogerpon on Nick's side is able to move first, you can go for a Howl and then follow up with a Horn Leech to potentially be able to KO the opposing Ogerpon. It'd be pretty close, but at the same time, you just go for a breaking swipe. You're facing down 2 physical attackers here, and then your Ogerpon and your Gouging Fire would be pretty safe from the attacks that could be fired off that turn. Storm and Tantrum really wouldn't do that much damage to a Gouging Fire, especially if you've gone for a breaking swipe. And then the Ogerpon, you can't go for an Ivy Cudgel very safely because it could have just gone for Follow Me, but instead, no, it's just a spiky shield.
Yeah, going a bit on the defensive side right here, wanting to scout out a bit what Francesco does whilst being able to have that really cool interaction of setting up the Howl and still allowing your partner to be able to get that attack boost through the Protect. But hitting for neutral, Ivy Cudgel focuses down onto the Gouging Fire in combination with the Stomping Tantrum. Will it be enough? No, most definitely not. This Gouging Fire is super bulky when it comes to its physical defense.
Yeah, but you've still got that Howl boost on both the Gouging Fire and the Ogerpon now. You're going to be able to do some fantastic damage. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if now a Breaking Swipe and a Horn Leech would be enough to KO the opposing Ogerpon. And you could even just go on the offensive with Ivy Cudgel. That's easily a KO into the Entei. Whenever you manage to land that, you only have to contend with the Follow Me that could come out from the opposing Ogerpon, though, and is exactly what we are seeing here.
Well said. The Follow Me will, of course, be coming out from this Ogerpon, redirecting that attack. Is Heat Crash enough? It is indeed enough to pick up the KO, allowing the Ogerpon over on Nick's side the freedom to go for the Ivy Cudgel into the Entei. Is enough to pick up the KO? It is enough! And all of a sudden, once again, Nick proving why they are the master of being able to change a board state completely from nowhere.
Yeah, fantastic play from Nick there. If that hadn't have KO'd the Ogerpon with the Heat Crash, that would have been a redirected Ivy Cudgel that would have healed the Ogerpon, and then Entei's free to go for whatever it wants on that turn. But that Gouging Fire after those howls is strong enough to pick up the KO. There you get the double KO, and now you're in a absolutely fantastic position here because the Flutter Mane has to join the field. You've howled so many times that your Gouging Fire will KO that Flutter Mane. If it can KO an Ogerpon with a Heat Crash, it's KOing a Flutter Mane with a Heat Crash, and you're a Dragon type, so you don't really care about the Thunderclap here. So this is just an absolutely fantastic position for Nick. Francesco knows it, throws in the towel, and Nick's going to win game 1.
What a way to kick off this second semi-final. Nick showing that they are not holding any punches back, going into this, trying to go and secure their position into the final. And what way to go about that indeed. Francesco felt like at some point they were able to go ahead and sort of put that pressure back onto Nick, but Nick was just able to find a way to maneuver themselves once again out of that position.
There was the clutch survival of the Raging Bolt after a great prediction from Nick on turn 1, going for the double up into that with the Moonblast and Ivy Cudgel, got that Electro Web off. Oh, suddenly it seems like the Entei's in a great position. Not if you just Sacred Fire a Gouging Fire on the switch in, and then suddenly the board state completely flipped and the Gouging Fire was completely in the driving seat, just going for those howls, enough to be able to increase the attack of itself up enough to KO the Ogerpon. I was quite surprised they was able to pick up the KO, but Gouging Fire is so strong there thanks to those howls.
It really, really was. And also that bolt, you know, this is sort of why we've highlighted this Pokemon several times, I think, on stream, because it hasn't quite yet been able to pick up that #1 title placement, but it definitely has that potential to be able to.
Yeah, it's been very prevalent throughout tournaments, and I think it just got second place at the Knoxville Regional Championship, which is a fantastic placing, but it's already vying to get back in the finals here over in Europe, because that was just a fantastic showing from Nick there. Francesco didn't play bad by any means. Like, that was a great play to go for that Electro Web to get that speed control turn 1, but then just the board state flipping. Nick was in the driving seat, so Francesco does have to adapt somehow.
All of the pressure right now is on Francesco. They have got to go and dig deep to force a game 3, or else they're going to be out of the contention of the finals here at the Dortmund Regional Championships. Let's go ahead and find out what adaptations have been made from either of these trainers. Nick leading with the Ogerpon and Fluttermane versus Francesco's Raging Bolt and the Entei.
That's the same leads from both players here, though, so you're threatening potentially the same moves from the previous game, but now you know that if you go for the Terra with the Raging Bolt, you should be living, because that was even a Terra Fairy boost from the Flutter main. Maybe that if you go for a Moonblast and then it's the Terra Water Ogerpon, that might switch up because that's not hitting on the Assault Vest. That might be able to pick up the KO. But in the same regards, Entei might just go on the offensive here. It wasn't attacked in that first game. Might just feel free to go on the offensive, try and snag that burn on the Ogerpon very early, or potentially do some massive damage to the Flutter main, which should really be putting it into that Thunderclap range.
And we see the terrestrialization is already going ahead and going to be utilized in a similar fashion as to game one, getting that offensive damage bulked up even further with that additional multiplier of the terrestrialization. With the Flutter main, we know how much of a menace this is. It is so powerful. However, Francesco already trying to adapt once again, similar to game one with the Raging Bolt.
Yeah, it's going to be going for Terra Fairy once again, either side. That Raging Bolt we saw in game one should be able to survive. It's just whether this Entei goes on the offensive here, because if that Ogerpon launched an Ivy Cudgel into that slot, it would do massive damage, but that is still, once again, a protect from the Entei.
Another protect from the Entei, mirroring game one, but no focus with the Moonblast. However, we've got the dual targeting of the Dazzling Gleam, still going to be able to threaten a lot of damage, and if this is an Ivy Cudgel into the Raging Bolt, once again, Nick will have to try to depend on a critical hit, but no, trying to read the adaptation of a move from Francesco, focusing down on the Entei, which allows the Electro Web to now get set off and connect correctly on both of Nick's Pokemon.
This is a much better start for Francesco coming out here, because you didn't take so much damage with the Raging Bolt. That means you need to commit probably 2 more attacks into this Raging Bolt to be able to get that KO. And the Flutter main has locked into Dazzling Gleam, so it's not doing as much damage to a single target. That might be why it's going to be retreating here. We've already seen that game one. Gouging Fire was a fantastic switch in. It could very easily be the case here as well.
Yeah, and I think being able to resist 4 times with a Sacred Fire focus into it is such a great way to be able to just sponge up that damage and have that immediate board state change. Like we've said, a double switch yet again from Nick's side. Now, Francesco sort of feels like they need to try to focus down and get those reads correctly, get that targeted correctly, and they were able to do that by focusing on the Rillaboom and picking up a one-hit KO.
I didn't do that in the first game. It was able to survive there, so just a roll to coming out here, but it would have picked up the KO regardless on the Rillaboom, but that's an Electro Web miss on the Gouging Fire. That means the Gouging Fire is definitely still going to be faster than both of these Pokemon. Maybe even after another Electro Web, it would be faster than both these Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of what Francesco's trying to target down right now. They want to be able to flip the switch on having that speed control advantage against Nick in order to further enable Francesco's Pokemon in the back, which are likely going to be some heavyweight offensive Pokemon. I think I saw a glimpse of that Chi Power, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. We'll be able to rank up the damage that we've been seeing here from Francesco. Still in a very solid position, though. Yeah, the Electro Web, the miss was very unfortunate, because then you don't get the Gouging Fire, potentially slower this turn.
No, but we have the defensive play from Nick's Ogerpon. They're going for the Spiky Shield, whilst yet again we have that combo of the Howl further enabling itself into an offensive threat, as Sacred Fire was hoping to try to target down that slot, and we have yet another Electro Web. Now the question is, does it actually connect this time with the Gouging Fire? It does. So it will start whittling down the utility of this faster, more inclined Gouging Fire.
And we'll also have to see now, will the Gouging Fire still outspeed the Ogerpon to try and get it to +2 with a Howl potentially on this turn? Because that Raging Bolt, it's been recovering a little bit with the Rillaboom's grassy terrain here. It's probably out of range of a +1 Ivy Cudgel. It might need, and yeah, the Ogerpon's outspeeding here, so that wasn't the opportunity for a second Howl, and that means they was able to survive here, but it's a follow-up Heat Crash. Is the Raging Bolt is able to survive the combinations? Raging Bolt is also incredibly heavy, and a Sacred Fire dodge once again, and now the Draco Meteor, at least the Draco Meteor connected with that Gouging Fire and got that KO.
Got the KO, so finally Francesco starting to see more of these rolls going in their favor quite nicely, although unfortunately the Sacred Fire miss is something quite crucial, because you know there was that half a chance to pick up a burn, which is so crucial when you have an Ogerpon trying to get those attack stages up.
Yeah, and it done some great damage as well. It could have maybe put it in range of a Thunderclap if it did snag that burn to try and whittle away a little bit more. But now the Flutter mains join the field once again. You can just go for a Dazzling Gleam now that the Raging Bolt is so low. It's an absolute clutch survival, but it is going to be in range of this Dazzling Gleam now.
It's a similar situation to that game one, where the Raging Bolt is susceptible to faster Pokemon unless it tries to go for the Thunderclap, which it does. No follow me redirection from the Ogerpon. However, the Dazzling Gleam Gleam, of course, will be more than enough to pick up the KO. And all of a sudden, we know that Nick, right now, they have their final 2 Pokemon going up against Francesco's 3. The question is, what final 4th Pokemon will Francesco have in the back?
Yeah, they've got to have something that's good against this Fluttermane here, because that Ivy Cudgel would absolutely be able to KO the Entei. You didn't get that Sacred Fire burn, potentially because of that miss. Even if it didn't burn, then it was still even threatening some absolutely massive damage. There's a little bit of recovery all around, which could very much help out. The Ogerpon's still reasonably healthy, but there is that Chien-Pao that is an adaptation coming forward for Francesco. Usually Chien-Paos are generally trained to be faster than Fluttermanes if they're completely run as fast as possible.
Yep.
But then if you want that extra damage, then usually the Choice Specs Fluttermanes outspeed. So we'll have to see the speed interactions here between the Chien-Pao and Fluttermane.
And we do know that Extreme Speed will be able to out-prioritize the Follow Me most likely, but it is, of course, dependent on the training in speed when it comes to the Ogerpon as well as the Entei. But we have an Extreme Speed, not quite enough to pick up the KO on the Fluttermane, and no redirection. Ice Core Crash misses! And that all of a sudden does change yet again a bit of the board state, a bit more in favor of Nick. However, it's not all over just yet. Which Pokemon is this Ogerpon trying to focus down and target on? Is it trying to get rid of the Chien-Pao or absolutely pick up that one-hit KO onto the Entei, which it is seeming to do so and has been able to accomplish?
Francesco just missing another move here. That's so unfortunate. Missing that Icicle Crash. You could have the potential of the consistent Ice Spinner, but then Icicle Crash does that extra damage and get those flinches, which we've seen be so impactful here, but does have the downside of it's got that shaky accuracy. It may not always connect with the opposing side of the field, and this Fluttermane is still around. That means that you can go for a Follow Me with your Ogerpon and keep it safe from that Chien-Pao. And 2 Dazzling Gleams, you can't go for the Terror anymore with the Ogerpon. If 2 Dazzling Gleams is enough to KO this opposing Ogerpon, you just get to go for Follow Me and Dazzling Gleam twice, and then you're in the final of the regional championship.
That's exactly it. So being able to bring yourself one step away from getting that final position is definitely what Nick is trying to make a reality, as they are going to go for the Follow Me. Dazzling Gleam, will this guarantee a 2-hit KO onto the Ogerpon? Only time will tell, and that time is right now.
It is.
Yes, it is a confirmation, and all of a sudden,
the Horn Leech recovery. Yeah, that might keep it out of range of that Dazzling... Well, it will keep it out of range of that Dazzling Gleam now. But the Chien-Pao protected that turn. It's still got to contend with the Follow Me into that Ogerpon now. Yes, you can pick up the KO on the Ogerpon, but you just need to be able to survive this Dazzling Gleam one more time. But it's a double protect from the Chien-Pao, not targeting down this Ogerpon this turn.
Not targeting down, Follow Me redirection. Once again, this means Chien-Pao is going down. This means Sword of Ruin will not enable this Ogerpon on Francesco's side to deal as much damage as it would have liked, and I feel like this is spelling like the finals is ready and has Nick's name written on it as single target. Fairy Terrestrialization will surely be able to pick up the game here.
You just need to click one more Dazzling Gleam and you are in the final of a regional championship there. Going for the double protect with the Chien-Pao, that could have been an opportunity to KO that Ogerpon, which means that the Horn Leech goes into the Fluttermane. That would have been a KO, but no, here is the Dazzling Gleam, that single target, absolutely enough to KO this Ogerpon, and Nick Schrott is going to reach the regional championship final.